Number 10. In January 2022, Sean Weiss celebrated 2 years of sobriety. Unfortunately, the Mighty Ducks star has had a rough time, who you might not recognize these days since he's 43 years old. The child actor played the goalie Greg Goldberg in the original Mighty Ducks movie in 1992 and the following films throughout the 90s. But between then and now, a whole lot went wrong, mainly hard times and too much meth. Sean was arrested in 2018 for public intoxication, sentenced to 90 days in county jail for possession of meth, and 150 days for stealing merchandise from an electronics store. The teen star was reduced to stealing from department stores just to buy his drugs in his later years. Then he was arrested in January 2020 for breaking into a man's house while he was blitzed out of his mind. He hit complete rock bottom, sick and mentally ill. Everybody gave up on him, and he was left pretty much toothless and housed in an assisted living program. These days, Sean is doing much better. He doesn't look quite as ragged as he did for the past few years, and he even got himself a new set of teeth since the meth rotted out all his natural ones. Number 9. Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown was a Disney child star who grew up in the public eye not too long ago, and just like Sean Weiss, he also went from a Disney prodigy to absolute rock bottom. If you're not sure who Orlando is, then you were probably born too late for That's So Raven and Family Matters. But he also starred in the Jamie Foxx show and voice acted for Fillmore and The Proud Family. Orlando played in quite a lot of things, from Major Payne in 1995 to Straight Outta Compton in 2015. His problems started in 2008 when he vanished for 24 hours and missed a day of meetings. And that was just the beginning. Drugs, violence, and run-ins with the law followed. In 2016, he got in trouble for punching his girlfriend in the face in a parking lot in Torrance, California. Next, he was busted with methamphetamine and brought up on charges of possession with the intent to sell. This was bad news, considering that Brown had gotten a DUI and was already tangled in the justice system just years earlier. Then, in 2018, he was taken into custody because he never showed up for his court date. Fast forward to 2021, Orlando Brown turned his life around. He graduated from a treatment center, is totally sober, and turned himself into a faith-based rapper dedicated to Jesus. Number 8. JONSHEL Alexander. JONSHEL Alexander was 22 years old when she died in 2021. JONSHEL was just a kid being cast in the movie Beasts of the Southern Wild 10 years before. This low-budget film, directed by Ben Zeitlin, turned into a major hit. Alexander played the character of Joy Strong, and the movie was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture. This propelled the 12-year-old girl straight into the spotlight. Sadly, the spotlight faded. The child star went on with her life, never had another role, and her popularity dried up. She became just another Louisiana native trying to live her life. Then, as she was sitting in a car with a man on a Saturday night in New Orleans, an unidentified person walked up and shot her to death through the window. It's been over a year, and we still don't know who killed her, why she was specifically targeted by a deranged gunman, or what's happening. The story blew up for about 3 days, the news cycle carried on, and there hasn't been a single update on the case since. Once a promising star, now an unsolved murder case. Number 7. Jake Lloyd. Jake Lloyd played Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, which came out in 1999. But Jake had made his acting debut 3 years earlier on the TV show ER at just 7 years old. He also was in the movie Apollo 11, in the Christmas hit Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and in the TV show The Pretender. He had a whirlwind career, until he was about 10 years old. Then, after playing Anakin, his career basically imploded. It was the beginning of the end. The last thing he would do as a professional actor was the voice of Anakin in the video game Star Wars: Racer Revenge in 2002. When asked why he vanished from the spotlight, Jake said it was because he got bullied at school for being Anakin Skywalker, probably by jealous kids who wished they could have been in Star Wars instead. But then, after school, Jake was pretty much unremarkable. He did nothing of any interest and didn't get any time in the news, at least not until 2015. That was when the police were called to his mom's house because Jake had first verbally assaulted her, then beat her up. It turned out Jake had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and had turned abusive against his mother. He was off his meds and out of his mind. Later that same year, he was arrested in South Carolina for reckless driving. He got into a car chase with the cops that only ended when he crashed into some trees. He then spent 10 months in jail before being transferred to a psychiatric facility. Number 6. Tom GUIRY. Tom GUIRY, the former child star who played in the hit movie The Sandlot as the character Scott Smalls back in 1993, has found himself in quite a bit of trouble. After the movie, he never really had much success, but he certainly made headlines in 2013. He was arrested for headbutting a police officer at the Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston. According to the Houston Chronicle, it started at about 6:45 p.m. United Airlines called the cops because a passenger was too wasted to fly. What happened next was an alcohol-fueled fit. As the cops tried to give him a break to see if they could get him sober enough to just go on with his business, he wanted to fight them. He attempted to kick an officer in the face, missed, then headbutted him instead. Tom was promptly arrested and carried out of the airport. Later, he posted a $5,000 bail and was let out. It was the most attention Tom had gotten since the 90s. Number 5. Henry Thomas. Henry Thomas started his career with one of the biggest movies in cinema history. He was the kid from E.T., the extraterrestrial, in 1982. As a young kid in the 80s, Henry was not prepared for what was about to happen to him. He was inducted into fame pretty much against his will and thrown into the spotlight. People would scream at him on the street and point and say, "Hey, it's the kid from E.T." But his career came to a slow and painful halt because of his mother. She was labeled as difficult to work with, and that rubbed off on Henry. He couldn't get the significant roles he wanted and had to star in small-time family affairs. Then, when Henry turned 18, he made a dramatic switch to R-rated movies. He starred in Murder 1, Valmont, and even the third sequel to the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock movie, Psycho. Henry appeared in Gangs of New York and Legends of the Fall in more recent memory, but he never really reached stardom as he did in 1982. Plus, he turned into an ordinary adult with his own crummy problems. In 2019, at 48 years old, the former child star was booked into the Washington County Jail. He was caught driving drunk in Oregon. The police received a call about a car that was just sitting on the road, not going anywhere. When the police officers arrived, they found Thomas slumped in the front seat, totally wasted. Number 4. Joey GAYDOS Jr. Joey GAYDOS Jr. played Zach Mooneyham in the 2003 movie School of Rock. It's arguably one of Jack Black's most significant films of all time, and he shows up to teach a bunch of youngsters how to rock and roll. But there's not much rock and roll in Joey's life these days. In 2019, at 27 years old, he faced charges of theft in Florida. Joey got caught in 4 separate incidents, stealing guitars and selling them in pawn shops. What makes this so ironic is that Joey played a musician in the 2003 movie. He also considers himself a musician and a serious guitarist, and maybe that was why he felt compelled to walk into shops, ask to test a specific guitar, and then run away with it. He stole a Gibson Les Paul worth $1,900 and a Fender Stratocaster worth $700. He also stole some guitar amps and ripped off his father. According to the police, Joey was stealing this stuff to feed his drug addiction. Sadly, Joey never starred in another movie. His role in School of Rock would be his only one, and while we don't know exactly what happened since the movie came out in 2003, it looks like Joey has gone down a dangerous path of drugs, theft, and time in jail. Number 3. Amanda Bynes. In 2014, Amanda Bynes was arrested for a DUI, but it was hardly her first encounter with the law. In just 12 months, the child star threw a bong out of an apartment window, completed 4 months in rehab, got a DUI, and then became a fashionable college student. The incident with the bong happened in May 2013 and ended with her being arrested, but the charges were ultimately dropped. Then, 3 months later, she started a fire out on the driveway of some house in California, and then was arrested carrying her pet dog into a store covered in gasoline. That was when she spent the 3 months rehabilitating herself in the psychiatric treatment center. Amanda Bynes became wildly famous as a kid in the 1990s and 2000s. She starred in her own show. Amanda's been in plenty of movies, but she's kind of become a train wreck as an adult. She has a face tattoo, which she is in the process of removing. She's hardly recognizable these days. And in 2022, a rather disturbing nude photo of Amanda appeared online. However, Amanda denies the nude photograph of her in a bathtub is indeed her, and says it's some random woman trying to ruin her life. Basically, Amanda's only fame these days is not being all over the tabloids. Number 2. Drake Bell. Drake Bell starred in shows on Nickelodeon like Drake and Josh. He was a big name for a long time, but not anymore. In 2021, he was given 2 years of probation and ordered to complete 200 hours of community service. At 35 years old, he was making some pretty poor decisions. You might call Drake an outright disgusting piece of trash, because Drake didn't get caught drinking and driving. He wasn't in a domestic dispute. Instead, he was brought up on a felony charge of attempting to endanger a child. Drake was busted and pleaded guilty to exchanging messages with a minor. It really doesn't get any more disgusting than that. Once a child star, and now a pervert on the loose. He should have been thrown in jail but got away with nothing but probation and some lousy community service. As for the case, it gets pretty outrageous. The victim claimed she began exchanging messages with Drake online back in 2017. She was only 15 years old. He was a grown man. The messages eventually became wildly inappropriate. Then, after she attended one of his concerts, he took her backstage, and the two got physical. After the incident, the victim realized the situation wasn't appropriate, so she went to the police and filed a report in 2018, and now Drake is forever shamed as a deviant and will probably never get work again. Number 1. Lindsay Lohan. It would take far too long to list everything Lindsay Lohan has ever been in. She was a star from a young age, appearing in everything from Freaky Friday to Mean Girls. But as Lindsay got older, her life got more complicated. There's no child celebrity more synonymous with the word train wreck than Lindsay Lohan. Her first arrest came in May 2007. She was busted driving drunk and being in possession of cocaine. She lost control of her Mercedes-Benz and crashed in Beverly Hills. After her arrest, she went to rehab. She was released after 45 days. And in July of that same year, she got busted driving under the influence yet again. She was caught chasing after a woman with her vehicle after they had gotten into an intoxicated argument. This was just 2 weeks after she left rehab. And the charges keep mounting. In 2011, Lindsay received a charge of felony grand theft for stealing a $2,500 necklace from a jewelry store in Venice. She was given 120 days in jail, but released after just spending 5 hours in prison. Talk about a star treatment. She was arrested again in 2012 for a hit and run after she ran somebody over in front of a New York hotel. But again, she escaped all charges and any punishment. The only good news is that Lindsay never really got in any more major trouble after that. And these days, she seems to be just minding her own business and staying out of the spotlight. Would you rather grow up poor and become a star as an adult, or start life out as a child star and grow up rich? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe icon if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon for another awesome video. Bye!